3 days before the flight, Patricia called me. Her voice was coated in that faux sweetness she always used when she wanted to deliver a slap and make it sound like a compliment. "This trip is immediate family only. I hope you understand." I didn't answer right away. My eyes drifted to the shared family calendar I had created, color-coded, detailed, synced across every device. Still there, in pale blue. Turquoise Bay Resort. Dates, flight numbers, even the beachside dinner reservations I had booked on Patricia's request. My name had been listed on those bookings for months. I scrolled through the entries like I was scanning my own obituary. I could feel my pulse tick up in my ears. 5 years married to Mark. Countless holidays, birthdays, and Thanksgivings with his family, organizing meals, buying matching pajamas, playing host while Patricia critiqued everything from my gravy to my voice volume. And now I was just not family. I took a screenshot of the calendar. For myself. Proof that I hadn't imagined it. That I hadn't overstepped. That this erasure was real. Still holding the phone, I stared out the kitchen window. The backyard was quiet. Our dog asleep in the shade. The wind chimes barely moving. Peaceful. But inside something had cracked. I didn't cry, didn't plead, didn't ask, why not me? I just felt that familiar heaviness settle in my ribs, that old habit of swallowing rage and calling it grace. I ended the call with a polite, "Thanks for letting me know," and then I did something I hadn't done in years. I left the family chat. No announcement, no snide exit. Just gone. Quietly, surgically. Mark didn't call. He texted 3 hours later as if on delay from whatever fog he lives in when it comes to his mother. "Hey babe, Mom just thought it'd be easier this way. You know how she gets anxious with too many people. Let's talk when I'm back." Let's talk when I'm back. He was really going to go without me. After everything. I reread the message 10 times, each pass stripping another layer of disbelief. No, I tried to change her mind. No, I told her that was unfair. Just a heads up and a pat on the head. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Just sat at the kitchen counter in the half-light with that screenshot still open on my phone. And then, something shifted. Not in some cinematic, triumphant way, but like a rope quietly uncoiling inside me. A decision, slow and solid, took shape. If they didn't see me as family, fine. I wouldn't beg for a seat at their table, I'd build my own. I called my assistant from work. "Pull all our prior emails with Turquoise Bay Resort," I said. "Find me a villa. I don't care the cost. Use the corporate concierge if you have to." "Same property?" she asked. "No," I said, then paused. "Actually, yes. Same property. Neighboring wing," and bumped the tier. An hour later, I called Fiona, my old college roommate, now a luxury travel publicist. "I need a favor. 2 exclusive experiences at Turquoise Bay, 1 private chef dinner, something local and impressive, and a closed-list excursion. Snorkeling, maybe. Something splashy." She laughed, already sensing the undertone. "Making a statement?" "Making arrangements," I replied. The emails and confirmations rolled in faster than I expected. By lunch, I had a private villa with its own plunge pool, ocean view, and access to a separate concierge tier they don't even advertise online. Fiona called back with a curated dining experience and a reef snorkeling tour that included a marine biologist and a personal photographer. I forwarded nothing to Mark. That evening, as I packed a soft leather duffel with linen dresses and sandals, my phone lit up. From Mark. "Flights at 10 a.m. Wish you were coming. Love you." I didn't answer. They wanted immediate family? They could have it. Every rigid, small version of it. I would show up not with revenge, not with confrontation, but with presence, with elegance, with undeniable reality. If they wanted to pretend I didn't belong, I'd let them pretend, while standing right in front of them. The last thing I packed was the framed photo from our wedding. Me and Mark on the beach, his arm around my waist, both of us sunlit and laughing. I didn't look like a guest in that picture. I looked like family, and I intended to remind them what they gave up. The morning of the flight arrived with a sort of eerie stillness, like the world knew something was off but hadn't decided how to respond. I stood by the window in our bedroom, watching the sky fade from ash to gold, my packed duffel resting against the chair leg. The house felt different, hollow, expectant. Downstairs, Mark was zipping up his roller bag. He didn't say much, just moved with the quiet efficiency of someone trying not to wake a sleeping conscience. "Did you eat?" I asked, voice even. He shook his head, eyes flicking past mine. "Mom's already at the airport with the others. Said she didn't want to risk the lounge being too full." Of course. Patricia needed her space, her peace, her curated version of what family looked like. "You sure you'll be okay here?" he asked, not meeting my eyes. "I told her you weren't thrilled, but it keeps Mom calm. We'll talk after." There it was again. That casual betrayal, shrink-wrapped in softness. "We'll talk after." I nodded, the gesture small and sharp. He bent down, kissed my cheek, and left. Just like that. No apology, no hesitation. Just the roll of wheels down the hall, the click of the door, and the hollow hush that followed. I waited until I heard the Uber pull away before I sat down at the kitchen table. The chair felt colder than usual. I stared at the place where his coffee mug normally sat, the empty circle on the wood like an echo. I could have cried. I could have screamed. Instead, I opened my laptop. The email from the resort was already there. Villa Azure confirmed, private pool, king suite, personal concierge, stocked bar, and full privacy. A note from the chef. Would Ms. Emerson like a welcome meal prepared upon arrival? I clicked, yes. Grilled sea bass, mango salad, ginger spritz. Let's begin as we mean to continue. Then I ordered a car. Not an Uber. A black car service. Leather seats, driver in a suit. The kind of transport Patricia would have used for a garden club luncheon. If they wanted distinction, they'd get it. By 2 p.m., I was in the air. Champagne in hand, my name handwritten on a welcome card beside a little dish of lemon-scented almonds. I leaned back, letting the clouds swallow the ground beneath us. The seat beside me stayed empty. I didn't miss Mark. Not really. I missed the idea of him. The version that would have said, "This is wrong," and stayed. The one that would have shut his mother down at the first hint of exclusion. But that version didn't board that plane. That version had stopped existing long before this trip. When we landed, the air hit me like silk. Warm, sweet, tinged with salt. A hotel representative held up a sign with my name and swept me into a private SUV. He offered me a cool towel, a flute of something sparkling, and a smile that didn't ask questions. We drove past the main lobby, the one I knew Patricia and the rest of them would be funneling through in clusters. Instead, the SUV peeled off into a side entrance, winding past gardens bursting with hibiscus and tucked-away bungalows. We arrived at a gated courtyard lined with ferns and blue glass lanterns. "Villa Azure," the driver said, stepping out to open my door. The villa itself was pure fantasy. High ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, soft cream linens, brass fixtures, a plunge pool that looked like it had been designed for slow, luxurious defiance. On the terrace, a bottle of champagne in a silver bucket, with a card that read, "Welcome, Ms. Emerson. We hope your stay is unforgettable." Oh, it would be. The sun was just beginning to drop when I slipped into a white linen dress, tied my hair back, and stepped barefoot onto the patio. From here, I could just make out the beach restaurant below, where the family was scheduled to dine that evening. I knew because I had booked it weeks ago. I watched them gather. Patricia in her signature pearls and beige wrap, the nephews running ahead, Mark trailing behind, adjusting the cuff of his linen shirt like it mattered. He looked unfinished, like a man unsure if he was part of the story or just passing through. Then the hotel SUV pulled up to the restaurant drive. My SUV. The maitre d' stepped out first. "Miss Emerson?" he said with a slight bow, loud enough for the nearby guests and family to hear. "Your private table is ready." I stepped from the vehicle slowly, deliberately, like I belonged in every square inch of that moment. I didn't look for Mark. I didn't need to. I saw Patricia's expression shift, her mouth twitching at the corners like she was holding back a cough or a curse. She hadn't expected this. Mark took a step forward, brows knitting, lips parting. But I breezed past. Because what he never understood, what none of them did, is that when you tell someone they don't belong, you don't erase them. You free them. And when I chose not to argue, not to fight, but to act, I didn't make a scene. I made a point. I followed the maitre d' to the far end of the beach terrace, where a private table sat under a canopy of woven light. Sea breeze, candlelight, a string quartet just out of sight. Dinner, for one, but not lonely, liberated. The waiter poured my wine. I raised my glass, not to Patricia, not to Mark, not to the family I wasn't part of, but to the version of me that had stopped asking for space at other people's tables. I would build my own, and make sure it was the one everyone wanted to sit at. The next morning, the sunlight filtered through gauzy curtains, draping everything in gold. I woke up in silence. No voices from the hall, no rustling from a shared suitcase. Just the hum of tropical air and the faint lapping of waves outside. I made coffee in the in-room French press. Real coffee. None of that drip machine nonsense they probably had in Patricia's wing. I sipped it slowly on the terrace in nothing but a robe, the sea stretching wide before me. Peace isn't loud. It whispers. And I was finally listening. By 8 a.m., my phone had already lit up with 2 texts from Mark. Mark. "Hey, didn't know you were coming. Can we talk later?" Mark. "Mom's a little thrown. Just give her some space, okay?" I put the phone down and laughed. Space. That was rich. I had no intention of becoming the topic of whispered breakfast gossip. I wasn't here for drama. I wasn't here to reclaim a seat at their table. I was here to redefine the room entirely. So I did what I do best. I made calls. First to Brianna, my executive assistant back home. She answered immediately. "Emily, I need you to pull our last booking emails with Turquoise Bay. All correspondence, notes, preferences, and flag the original planner's contact info if you find it." There was no confusion in her voice. "Are we changing the reservation?" "We're expanding it." "Understood." I paused. "And book me the Azure Coral Villa, the neighboring one, highest tier available, 2-bedroom. Don't use my personal card. Run it through the corporate concierge under executive retreat. Tell them it's short notice but essential." Brianna didn't flinch. That's what made her great. "You got it. Give me 1 hour." Next, I called Fiona, the travel PR goddess, the kind of woman who could get you a last-minute reservation at a 6-month wait sushi bar in Tokyo and still have time to throw together a press release. She picked up mid-laugh. "Emily Emerson, please tell me you're calling to shake things up. Private chef dinner. At the villa. Local cuisine, plated. Nothing too stiff. I want ease, but with a wow factor." "Ooh, I can already smell the grilled pineapple," she said. "Anything else?" "2 exclusive experiences. Not generic ones. Something closed list, invite only, and make sure we've got rights to photos. I want this on lockdown." "On it," she said. "Oh, and Emily?" "Yeah?" I don't know what Patricia did, but she's about to regret it. I smiled. She already does. I ended the call and stood barefoot on the cool tiles of the villa. The breeze moved through the open doors like it belonged here, like it knew something was shifting. I looked down at my wedding ring. It glinted in the light, innocent and weighty. I didn't take it off. Not yet. But I did slip it to my right hand. The rest of the morning was a flurry of confirmations. The azure coral villa was mine for the rest of the week. Secluded, opulent, with an outdoor dining terrace perfect for entertaining. The chef would arrive Wednesday, menu pending my preferences. Fiona even secured a marine biologist-led snorkeling experience with underwater photographers and a drone operator to capture aerial shots of the reef. That part made me grin, because Patricia hated drones, said they cheapened the ambiance. By noon, I was in a cabana by the pool. Not the resort's main pool, of course. That would have meant proximity to the clan. No, this was the villa's private plunge pool, surrounded by whitewashed stone and bamboo palms. I wasn't hiding. I was repositioning. That's when the messages started coming from the younger generation. Mark's niece, Rachel, 19, and freshly obsessed with her Instagrid, sent a DM. Rachel: OMG, Aunt Emily, I saw your villa on stories. Are you serious right now? That place is next level. Then her brother, Sam. Sam: where are you staying? We thought you weren't coming. Mom said it was too tight with everyone or something. I didn't respond directly. I just posted a single photo to my stories: the edge of the infinity pool, the ocean beyond, a book open on my lap. Caption: no lines, no drama, just sunlight and sea. The reaction was immediate: heart eyes, fire emojis, quiet envy. That afternoon, while Patricia and company were stuck in a 2-hour line for the catamaran tour, I lounged in my own courtyard while Fiona texted me the finalized menu for the private chef dinner. Grilled prawns with chili lime glaze, plantain fritters with mango chutney, slow-roasted pork shoulder in banana leaves, and for dessert, a sea salt chocolate torte with gold leaf. I requested name cards for each plate. Not because I wanted to be fancy, because I wanted them to see something when the time came. Mark texted again that evening. Mark: I saw Rachel's story. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? I finally responded. Me: you told me this trip was for immediate family. I respected that. So I planned my own. There was no reply. At dinner, I dressed in silk. Pale blue, like sea glass. I sat alone again, this time not hidden from view, but in plain sight at a table on the upper deck of the villa restaurant, elevated just enough to see the beach below and be seen. From my perch, I watched them file in again. Patricia looked tired. Mark looked distracted. The kids? They looked curious. I raised a glass of Sauvignon Blanc to no one in particular. Just the moment. The decision was made. I would not be erased. I would not demand entry. I would build something better. And they could watch from outside the gate. They say timing is everything. That's true for music, for business, and, especially, for revenge that doesn't call itself revenge. The hotel SUV arrived at 6:57 p.m., just as the family's dinner reservation was shifting from small talk to appetizers. The vehicle rolled down the sloped entrance to the beach restaurant like it had been choreographed, tires quiet on polished stone, engine humming low, tinted windows reflecting the amber hues of the setting sun. I could feel them notice before I even stepped out. The maitre d', clad in crisp white with a gold pin on his collar, moved with swift precision. He opened the door, bowed slightly, and said it loud enough for every immediate family member in earshot. Ms. Emerson, your private table is ready. The air shifted. I stepped down slowly, one hand grazing the doorframe, the other resting lightly against the curve of my hip. I wore white, silk crepe that moved like water. Sleeveless, slit at the thigh. Clean, simple elegance, no apologies. My hair was swept up. Gold hoops, bare shoulders. Mark's head turned first, then Patricia's. She was mid-sentence, holding a martini glass in her talon-painted fingers. It tilted as she froze. Her lips parted slightly, caught somewhere between outrage and denial. The kind of look a person gives when the ghost they tried to bury shows up wearing couture. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just stood there, letting the silence stretch long enough to sting. Behind Patricia, her daughter-in-law turned to look at me. One of the younger cousins whispered something into her brother's ear and snickered. Mark looked stunned. Not angry. Not pleased. Just stunned. Like he didn't understand the rules anymore. And that was the point. The maitre d' led me along a private walkway. No beach sand, no crowd. Just a path of lit stone to a candlelit table set for one, on a platform overlooking the sea. A violinist played soft notes nearby. Not loud, not performative. Just a whisper of elegance. When I sat down, the staff offered me the menu I'd pre-approved. My glass was filled with a rosé from Provence. A small lantern flickered beside a bowl of water with floating orchids. Across the beach, I could feel Patricia's fury even through the balmy air. She was speaking to Mark now, fast, clipped words. His body language had changed. His shoulders slumped slightly. He was rubbing the back of his neck. I took a bite of chilled cucumber soup and looked away from them entirely. Because I didn't come to crash their dinner. I came to make it irrelevant. Midway through my entree, grilled lobster tail with coriander butter, I saw two of the nieces wander away from the main table and head toward the edge of my section. One waved timidly. I gave her a polite nod and motioned for the waiter. "Send them a round of mocktails," I said, "whatever's pretty and tropical. Something with umbrellas." The waiter nodded and disappeared. The girls looked at each other, giggling. They weren't the enemy. None of them were, really. Even Patricia, in her own twisted way, was just playing defense against a woman who refused to shrink. The mocktails arrived. I didn't look again, but I could hear the chatter rise at their table. And then a new sound. Applause. The fire dancers were starting on the other side of the beach. A performance Patricia had carefully requested weeks ago, but half her table was now watching me. By the time dessert arrived, a plate of spiced guava tart with coconut cream, I was done making my point. I stood, thanked the staff, and walked the same stone path back to the SUV. I didn't glance at Mark. I didn't need to. His silence earlier this week had been a choice. Mine now was a statement. Before stepping into the car, I turned back for just a second, not toward the family, but toward the sea. The waves moved steadily, unbothered by drama, disinterest, or disapproval. The ocean didn't need permission to take up space. Neither did I. Inside the SUV, the air was cool. Lavender-scented. The driver met my gaze through the rearview mirror and smiled without asking anything. I leaned back into the leather seat, let my heels slip off, and whispered just loud enough to hear myself. Not excluded. Elevated. And I meant it. The sun rose slow and heavy the next morning, pulling long gold shadows across the stone tiles of the villa. I didn't rush. I didn't have to. The scent of brewed coffee and hibiscus drifted in from the private garden. A fresh fruit tray had been left outside my door by the villa staff. Pineapple, mango, lychee, figs, each slice carved like art. A note was tucked under the edge of the tray. "Ms. Emerson, your private pool has been prepped and covered for shade. Let us know if you'd like the umbrellas opened later for sun. We are here for anything." I wasn't used to being the center of someone's hospitality, not without conditions or small talk or forced gratitude. But here, in this slice of curated calm, I was just a woman on vacation. Not a daughter-in-law, not an outsider, not a chess piece in Patricia's quiet game of exclusion. I slipped into my swimsuit, layered a linen robe on top, and walked barefoot to the plunge pool. The water was perfect. Still, blue, undisturbed. A mirror if I wanted it to be. I didn't. By 9:15 a.m., the first knock came at the villa gate. I already knew who it was. Patricia. I didn't answer immediately. I waited long enough to let the sound echo just slightly before walking over and opening the gate with a smile that never touched my eyes. She wore her version of casual, pressed beige slacks, a white blouse, oversized sunglasses, pearls even at the beach. Her lips stretched into a smile 2 seconds too late to be genuine. "Emily," she said, "darling, thought I'd come say hello." I nodded. "Hello?" "I saw your table last night," she said, glancing over my shoulder. "Lovely view." "You booked that restaurant," I replied, voice even. "You always did have good taste." She laughed, brittle. "Well, we didn't mean to upset you with the invitation list. Things just got complicated." "You were very clear," I said. "Immediate family only. I'm respecting the rule." A pause. Just long enough for the tension to bloom between us like a slow-blooming bruise. "Well," she began again, "Mark didn't expect—" "I planned my own," I interrupted. "I didn't come here to argue, Patricia. You wanted a boundary. I honored it. We're both enjoying the resort. Separately." She blinked, then smiled too tightly. "And yet, here you are, drawing a lot of attention." "That wasn't my intent," I said. "But when you build something of your own, sometimes people are drawn to it." She had no retort for that. Just adjusted her sunglasses and gave a soft sniff. "Well, just wanted to check in. No hard feelings?" I tilted my head. "None. Have a lovely morning." She turned and walked back toward the main path, shoulders a little too stiff to be relaxed. After she was gone, I poured myself a mimosa and sat back by the pool, legs stretched across the lounge chair, face tilted toward the sun that had finally emerged fully from behind the clouds. But the knock had opened something. By noon, 2 of the nieces were texting me again. Rachel. "Aunt Em, can we swing by your place? Just to hang? It's so crowded where we're staying." Sam. "Do you still have that floaty drink tray thing? The pool at the main wing is packed." And loud. I told them yes. I told them to bring towels. By 2, I had a small crew at the villa. Mark's nieces, 1 nephew, even Madison, the youngest cousin who'd barely spoken a word to me at past holidays. They sipped cold mocktails by the plunge pool, passed around shrimp tacos, and took selfies under the bougainvillea vines. I didn't perform. I didn't brag. I just let the space speak for itself. No lines, no shouting parents, no barked instructions about sunscreen or nap times. Just music, shade, calm. It was everything they hadn't realized they were missing. Mark showed up around 3. He didn't knock, just walked in the side gate and stopped short when he saw his nieces lounging by the water, plates in hand. "Wow," he said, glancing around. "This is insane. How did you even—" "I booked it," I said. 3 days ago." His face flushed slightly. "You didn't tell me you were coming." "You told me not to," I said, meeting his gaze. "Remember? It keeps Mom calm. We'll talk after." "I didn't mean it like that," he said. Things escalated. They always do, and I always shrink. But not this time." He looked at the spread on the table. Charcuterie, fresh fruit, tall drinks with sprigs of mint, and the cousins happily splashing in the pool. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Everyone's talking about this setup," he admitted. "Even Dad said he might swing by. Mom's fuming." "I didn't invite anyone," I said calmly. "They came because it felt better here." Mark sat on the edge of the pool, shoes off, toes grazing the surface. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "It's impressive, Emily." "Really?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He stayed for an hour. Didn't check his phone once. When he left, I didn't walk him out. That night, the family group chat lit up. Rachel: "Emily's villa is next level private chef?" "Like what?" Sam: "Low-key better than the resort itself." Patricia: "Let's please keep the group focused on family updates, not comparisons." I didn't respond, but I did read it twice. Not comparisons, just consequences. By the time Wednesday rolled around, the divide was no longer subtle. It was visible, in the way Patricia's group trudged to the buffet in matching t-shirts, while my villa buzzed with color and laughter. It was audible, in the difference between forced conversation over plastic cups and the sound of spontaneous laughter echoing off my terrace as mimosas clinked beside fresh fruit trays. And it was undeniable, in the new rhythm of who went where and why. The morning began like the last few, quiet, perfect, deliberate. I padded barefoot to the kitchen where the staff had left breakfast in glass containers: avocado toast, citrus salad, soft-boiled eggs. The coffee was still warm. I ate alone by the pool, robe tied loosely at the waist, my reflection calm and sharp on the still surface. Then came the footsteps. Light, familiar. Rachel arrived first. Wet hair, flip-flops. She didn't ask if it was okay. She knew now. "Hope you don't mind," she said. "Uncle Mark said you had extra snorkeling gear?" "Check the closet," I replied, not looking up from my book. 15 minutes later, Sam and Madison followed, loaded with towels, a Bluetooth speaker, and a GoPro. They brought pastries this time. They always brought something now. By 10, 5 people were in my pool. By noon, 7. I hadn't invited them. That was the point. I created a space. They just chose it. And Mark? He drifted in by late morning. No fanfare, no excuse. Just a quiet presence, sunglasses pushed up onto his forehead, wearing swim trunks I didn't recognize. Probably new. Probably bought on the fly when he realized he'd be spending more time here. He helped himself to iced tea, sat on the edge of the pool, and said nothing for nearly an hour. When the group left for the private snorkeling tour, arranged by Fiona, complete with a marine biologist and underwater photographer, they carried bags packed by my staff. Custom towels, waterproof phone pouches, embroidered tags. I didn't go with them. I stayed behind, sat by the pool, wrote in my journal, thought. But I watched them leave. Watched the way Mark naturally walked beside me instead of ahead of me. Watched Rachel lean into him with that familiar ease, laughing at something he said. Watched them leave as a unit, a pod, orbiting around my orbit. Around 3:00 p.m., a new message popped up in the family group chat. "Mark, Emily's place is insane. No lines, no heat stroke. Seriously, how did she pull this off?" 2 thumbs-up emojis followed. 1 heart. Then nothing for a while. Until Patricia responded. "Patricia. She's just showing off." That line sat there for nearly an hour, blinking in the digital silence. Then Mark replied. "Mark. She's not showing off. She's making the best of being excluded." No one responded to that. Later, when the snorkeling group returned, sun-kissed and salt-speckled, the energy was electric. They exploded through the villa gate with stories of sea turtles, reef sharks, a dolphin that veered too close to Sam and made him scream. The GoPro footage was already uploading to someone's cloud. And then, as everyone sprawled across towels and lounges, sun-drenched and happy, Patricia arrived. Not with a knock. Not even with a greeting. She just walked in. Like she had a right. And for the first time all week, the laughter stopped. She wore linen this time, trying to blend. Her eyes darted from person to person, registering who had defected. Mark, the cousins, even little Madison, who had always hung at her side like a loyal shadow. "Well," Patricia said, adjusting her sunglasses, "looks like quite the party." I stood, not because I was threatened, but because I knew the power of posture. "It's not a party," I said. "It's just peace." She blinked. "You've certainly built something dramatic." "I didn't ask for a seat at your table," I said. "I built my own. They came here on their own." Behind me, someone popped a can of sparkling water. The fizz filled the silence like punctuation. Patricia's gaze swept the space. The coordinated towels, the lanterns, the bar cart, the laughter that didn't need her. Then she said, too sweetly, "Enjoy it while it lasts," and left. No one followed. Mark exhaled loudly. What does that even mean? But I already knew. It meant she felt the shift too. Not just in bodies, but in balance, in gravity. I wasn't an accessory to this family anymore. I wasn't a quiet tag-along in their narrative. I was the alternate storyline. The one you end up rooting for because the original lost its soul somewhere along the way. As the sun dipped lower, casting long golden arms across the patio, someone turned the music up. Laughter returned. The cousins splashed each other. The smell of grilled pineapple wafted in from the villa's kitchen. I didn't need to dominate. I just had to hold my ground. Because the shift had happened. And they all felt it. The dinner invitations were printed on ivory cardstock, each one hand-delivered to the doors of every family villa by the hotel staff. Gold lettering. No fanfare. No RSVP necessary. Join me for dinner at Villa Azure Coral, Thursday at 7 p.m. A thank you for being as relaxed with my rules as I was with yours. Emily. I didn't explain further. By now, they understood. I wasn't asking to join them. I was extending a hand from my own table. The preparations began that afternoon. 2 chefs arrived around 2 p.m., along with a server team and a florist, who added bursts of coral peonies and soft white orchids to the outdoor dining area. A canopy of hanging lights had already been strung across the terrace earlier that morning, each bulb glowing like a suspended star. Place settings were arranged one by one, brushed gold flatware, linen napkins, custom menus laid gently at each seat. The table stretched long and wide, enough for every name I had learned over 5 years of holidays and obligatory brunches. Even Patricia. Especially Patricia. As the sun began to sink, I dressed in charcoal silk. Simple, sleek. No jewelry but a slim gold bracelet. My own quiet kind of armor. My hair was pulled back. No lipstick. Just intention. The first to arrive were Sam and Rachel, freshly showered and barefoot, carrying a bottle of wine they'd smuggled out of the resort bar. They handed it over like contraband. "You didn't need to bring anything," I said. Rachel grinned. "We wanted to." Next came Madison and her brother, followed by Mark's sister and her husband. They looked tentative at first, like they were unsure if they were guests or witnesses, but when they saw the table, their shoulders relaxed. "This is incredible," someone whispered. At 7:03, Mark arrived alone. He wore a collared shirt I hadn't seen before, pressed, clean, untucked. No sign of Patricia. He walked up to the terrace, took one long look at the table, then at me. "You pulled this off in what, 48 hours?" he asked quietly. 72, I said, give or take. He didn't smile, but he didn't look away either. We sat as the servers began pouring the wine. A hush fell over the table, the way it always does when something meaningful is about to begin. Glasses clinked, plates arrived in unison. First course, chili-dusted watermelon with feta and mint. Light, cool, familiar with an edge. I rose slowly as the plates were being cleared. "I won't keep you long," I said, raising my glass. Everyone turned to listen. When I was told I didn't fit on this trip, I took it at face value. And I remembered something I used to forget often. Belonging isn't permission, it's a choice. I let the words hang. I chose not to beg for space. I chose to create one. And I'm grateful to those of you who chose to be part of it. No applause, just quiet, and something softer underneath. Respect. Dinner's on me tonight, I added. Dessert too, and there's one at every plate. As the main course arrived, grilled sea bass, ginger rice, pickled mango slaw, servers placed a small cream envelope beside each dish. Inside, a name card with each guest's name written in gold script. No hierarchy, no special designations. Everyone had a place. Even Patricia's card sat untouched at the seat she hadn't filled. Mark opened his first. His brow furrowed as he stared at the card. Then he glanced at mine. His read, Mark, present where it matters. Mine read, Emily, never needed permission. Others began to read theirs aloud. Rachel's, Rachel, brightest light finds its own way. Sam's, Sam, louder isn't always wiser. Each card was part observation, part invitation. Not a performance, not a jab. Just truths offered like petals on water. Gentle, undeniable. There was one for every cousin, every sibling, even the spouses. A few people wiped tears. One uncle gave me a toast, quiet and sincere. By dessert, coconut panna cotta with candied lime, the air had shifted entirely. Laughter returned. Not forced. Not polite. Real. Mark leaned over, voice low. She's furious, you know. I assumed. She said you made a scene. I met his eyes. I didn't make a scene, I said. I made a point. He stared at me for a moment, then let out a breath and laughed. Low, tired, but real. The kind of laugh that comes from realizing something you've known deep down for a while. You're not the same woman I married. I never was, I said. You just finally noticed. Dinner ended under a sky full of stars. No fireworks, no performances. Just people who had, in the quiet of their own minds, started to realize where the real gravity now lived. And Patricia? She never showed. But her chair stayed open, her name card unclaimed, because even in exclusion, I still made space. Even in dismissal, I stayed open. I didn't want her apology. I wanted her to feel the absence of a seat she thought was hers by default. The next morning, the tension bloomed early, sharp, sour, and undeniable. Patricia showed up at breakfast wearing her full armor, a crisp button-down, oversized sun hat, and a pair of gold-rimmed sunglasses that said, "Don't test me." Her perfume arrived 10 seconds before she did. I was sitting in the resort cafe with Mark and Rachel, sipping iced espresso, discussing whether to do the reef hike or stay by the villa for another lazy day. The server had just placed a plate of mango crepes in front of me when Patricia's shadow fell over the table. "Oh," she said, voice too sweet. "Didn't realize this was a group thing now." I smiled without looking up. "It's a cafe, Patricia, not a private salon." She pulled out the fourth chair and sat, uninvited. Mark stiffened. Rachel focused on her drink, eyes darting from me to her grandmother. Patricia set her tote on the table with a thud. "You certainly made a statement last night," she said, unfolding a napkin like she was performing surgery. "It wasn't a statement," I replied. "It was dinner. Private chef, personalized cards, villa lighting, all very subtle." "I told you, Patricia," I said, gently laying my fork down. "I'm not performing. I'm existing. Maybe you're just not used to seeing me in full view." Her jaw twitched. "It's not just me who noticed. The cousins, the staff, even the other guests. People talk." "They do," Mark said suddenly. "And most of what I've heard has been pretty positive." Patricia turned her gaze to him, slow and pointed. Excuse me? Mark cleared his throat, then leaned back in his chair. Mom, you hurt my wife. She responded with grace. You don't get to twist that into some act of vanity. Patricia blinked. I simply set boundaries. No, he said. You drew a line and assumed everyone would stay on your side. For a moment, everything froze, the cafe's hum fading, the clink of dishes around us muffled. Rachel let out a small breath, almost like relief. Patricia's voice turned to a whisper, but the venom was still there. She's dividing this family. Mark shook his head. No. You did that when you treated her like a guest in her own marriage. Rachel added quietly but firmly. It's been like this for years, Grandma. Patricia turned to her, stunned. What? Rachel didn't back down. Always this control game. Who's in? Who's out? You do it with everyone, not just Aunt Emily. We're just used to it. Silence. For once, Patricia had no script to fall back on. I stood. I didn't need to say more. The cracks were already showing, fractures in her image that had once seemed indestructible. She didn't know what to do without her control, and I no longer needed to shrink beneath it. Thank you for breakfast, I said to Mark and Rachel. I'll see you at the villa. As I walked away, I didn't look back. Not even when I heard Patricia say, in a brittle whisper, I was only trying to protect tradition. From what? From evolution? From equity? From the reality that respect isn't inherited? It's earned? I didn't care. Back at the villa, the chef was prepping for brunch. Not for a show, not for a spectacle, just for those who had chosen to be here. Word had spread fast. Nearly everyone had cleared their schedules. By 11's Haas, the terrace was full again. Sun hats, swimsuits, crossed legs and tilted heads, laughter over mimosas and egg soufflés. No one mentioned Patricia. But I saw the shift. The way people made room without asking, the way the conversations bent naturally toward my voice, the way Mark looked at me, not with pity or apology, but something closer to recognition. After brunch, he lingered while others wandered down to the beach. He didn't speak for a while, just stood beside me at the edge of the pool, watching the ripples stretch outward. I'm sorry, he said finally, for before, for letting it go on so long. I didn't respond. Sorry only works when followed by change. Then he added, she thinks she's losing her grip. I looked at him. She's not. She already lost it. The difference is now everyone sees it. And that was it. No screaming, no confrontation, just acknowledgement, slow and steady, like the tide reclaiming a shore that had always belonged to it. Thursday night bled into Friday with a strange kind of stillness. The villa, usually buzzing with laughter, felt quieter. Not somber, just full, complete. As if every unspoken thing had finally landed in the open and settled like dust. Mark didn't go back to the main suite that night. No announcement, no dramatic bag packing, just a simple shift, like a tide deciding it was done retreating. I had just stepped out of the shower when I heard the knock. Not on the gate, on the door. I opened it to find him standing there, barefoot, holding a small overnight bag, the same one he'd packed for the family trip. It looked too neat, too intentional, like he'd spent time making sure it looked casual. I'd rather be here, he said. I said nothing, just stepped aside. He walked in and set the bag down carefully, not like a man claiming space, like one finally returning to it. We didn't talk much that evening. I poured 2 glasses of wine, and we sat on the terrace watching the sky smear itself into the sea. Lavender, blood orange, the kind of dusk that makes you forget anything ugly exists. At one point, Mark said, I kept thinking if I kept the peace, things would fix themselves. They don't, I replied. I know that now. He finished his wine, then added, What you did, it was bold. I turned to him. It wasn't revenge. It was a reminder. He nodded. And a wake-up call. I let that sit between us. I didn't need a confession. I needed consistency, respect, alignment. And this time, it felt like I might finally be getting it. That night, he slept beside me for the first time in days. Not as an apology, not as a favor, just quietly, fully. In the morning, I rose before the sun, slipped out of bed and wrote something on thick hotel stationery. My handwriting slow, deliberate. I sealed it in an envelope and left it on the small side table by the front door, weighed down by a polished stone from the beach. The envelope was addressed to one person, Patricia. The note inside was only 10 words. You could have had a daughter. You chose a rival. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't dramatic. It was the truth. Plain and reflective. I placed it beside a small white shell and left the villa for a solo walk on the beach. When I returned, the envelope was gone. Mark didn't mention it. He didn't need to. Later that day, the group gathered for one final casual lunch at the main resort's oceanfront grill, a tradition Patricia insisted upon. She liked tradition. Even when it no longer served anyone, we showed up together, side by side, not defiant, just present. As we approached the table, a few cousins smiled. One aunt squeezed my shoulder. Even the server seemed warmer, more familiar. The air had shifted. Patricia sat at the head of the table, a large sun hat pulled low over her face, her plate untouched. When she looked up and saw Mark walking toward my chair, not hers, her jaw tightened. Still, she said nothing. When we sat, Mark leaned over and whispered just loud enough for her to hear. I moved my things. Patricia didn't respond. Just reached for her water and drank slowly, her hand trembling slightly. No one else noticed. But I did. For the rest of the meal, she kept her voice low. No sharp corrections, no forced jokes, no veiled comments about how things used to be. She was quieter, smaller, not out of submission, but out of exposure. When the image cracks, it takes effort to hold what's left. After lunch, the group began to disperse, some to pack, some to soak up the last of the sun. Mark stayed with me. We walked the path back to the villa, silent in step. I'm not proud of how long it took, he said eventually. Neither am I replied. But you're here now. He stopped walking, turned to face me. I want to keep being here. I nodded. Then stay. That evening, we didn't go to the farewell dinner. We stayed in, ordered room service, sat on the floor, and watched old vacation videos from when we were just engaged, before the power games, before the scripts, when love felt simple. He fell asleep with his head in my lap, and I just sat there, hand resting in his hair, eyes on the horizon outside the window. Not gloating, not celebrating, just breathing. Because sometimes the most powerful turning point isn't the big speech or the dramatic exit. It's when someone finally chooses you, not because they have to, not because it's expected, but because they see you, fully, and they stay. The airport was packed in that chaotic, slow-motion way all international terminals are. Strollers jamming the lanes, kids crying about juice, vacationers dragging sunburned shoulders and souvenir bags too big for overhead bins. But for once, I didn't mind the noise. It made space for quiet between us. Mark and I stood at the check-in counter as the airline agent typed with furious precision. I handed over my passport, calm and efficient. No double-checking, no scrambling. I knew exactly where I was supposed to be. The agent looked up, eyes flicking from screen to me. Ah, Ms. Emerson, your upgrade is confirmed. Seat 1A. She said it the way someone might say ambassador or doctor, like it meant something. I smiled. Thank you. Mark glanced sideways at me, surprised. You upgraded? Concierge handled it, I replied. They offered. I said yes. He didn't argue. He didn't ask why I hadn't included him. He just nodded, like he understood what it meant. At security, we parted ways briefly. My line was shorter. Priority access. I breezed through in minutes, while Mark waited behind a family of 6 whose toddler was actively licking the barrier poles. By the time we regrouped at the gate, most of the extended family had arrived. Rachel waved from across the terminal. Sam lifted his carry-on in a mock salute. The others offered a mix of smiles, sheepish glances, and polite nods. Then Patricia arrived. She wore a pale blue travel set, massive sunglasses, and a silk scarf tied around her neck like she was fleeing a scandal in Monaco. She didn't look at me, but she looked for me, scanning the area until her eyes landed on 1A printed in gold on the upgrade list beside the gate desk. I didn't flinch. Mark and I sat together near the window, but our boarding groups were different. When Group 1 was called, I stood. He didn't. You're not going to sit with me? He asked, half teasing. I turned to him, adjusted the strap on my carry-on, and said softly, You had a seat next to me this whole week. You just chose when to take it. He exhaled. Fair. I leaned down, pressed a kiss to his forehead, and walked toward the gate. When I boarded, the flight attendant smiled and took my bag, placing it gently in the overhead. Welcome aboard, Ms. Emerson. Let us know if you need anything. I slipped into 1A, window seat, extra legroom, champagne already waiting. As I settled in, I looked out the small oval window, watching the blur of the tarmac move slowly beneath the rising heat. The rest of the family boarded in clusters. I didn't look for them. I just waited. Eventually, Patricia passed by. She saw me. I know she did. Our eyes didn't meet, but the pause in her step betrayed her. She hesitated just long enough to acknowledge the difference. Her middle row seat, my front cabin silence. I offered a quiet smile. Not smug, not cruel. Just a smile that said, I didn't need to yell to win. I just had to listen. To myself. Then I slipped on my headphones. The plane taxied, lifted, and broke through the clouds like a second skin peeling away. Above the white, the sky was endless. I pulled out my notebook, the one I'd kept in the drawer of the villa desk, and turned to the last page. There, in the cleanest handwriting I could manage on a slightly shaking plane, I wrote, I'll be wherever I'm respected. Everything else, on my terms. That was the rule now. Not vengeance, not pettiness, not even pride. Just a new boundary built of bone and clarity. After we landed, Mark caught up to me at baggage claim. The others stood back, unsure of the new gravity between us. Come home with me? He asked. I turned to him, thought for a long beat. Home has to be somewhere I'm seen. He nodded. Then let's make that place together. Not theirs. Ours. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. Because power wasn't in choosing him. It was in knowing I didn't have to.